Welcome to the Strong Enough podcast, where we talk about the challenges and celebrate the triumphs of people from all walks of life. I'm your host, Claudia. Today's guest is going to talk about anger and shame. She's going to share how these things negatively affect us, not only emotionally, but also physically. And she's going to share how you can get rid of these things for good. Please help me welcome Brownwyn Schweigerdt. Bronwyn, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Claudia. Thank you.
I am so glad to have you here with me. We have some super cool stuff to talk about. I think some things that are going to be really informative for the audience. So, would you start by telling them a little about yourself?
Yeah, I am a therapist, a psychotherapist, and an anger expert, self-professed anger expert, but that is kind of a specialty. I am also the host of a podcast called Angry at the Right Things, which is about anger, but it's also a lot about shame, hatred, all of those things that we never talk about, but we all have.
We do all have them. I can say that for sure. What led you to this area of expertise?
So crazy story, but I always
That's why we're
find
here.
true life is way more crazy than fiction,
Mhm.
So my first career, I already had a master's degree in nutrition. I never saw myself ever gain a second master's and becoming a therapist and changing careers. But about 16 years ago, I fell into a very profound depressive episode to the point where I was physically sick. I was involuntarily vomiting at random times, such as driving my car on the freeway and walking down the street, which was very humiliating. And I couldn't stop eating simultaneously. So day and night, I was just so hungry all the time. And I gained about 30 pounds in 2 months. So I was really sick. And everyone I knew was like, you need to go to a therapist. I visited a host of different therapists. Every time I found myself sitting on a couch going, Bronwyn, you are barely functioning, but I still think you might make a better therapist than this person. And so part of my healing journey from that depressive episode, and I had another very severe one after that, but this episode was in part resolved by going back to school and becoming a therapist. So the second major depressive episode, in a nutshell, was more shame-based and was me just betraying myself, not being aware of all that. But anyway, in retrospect, when I started actually practicing as a therapist, I started making these connections. Okay, so I think this client's depression is from their own suppressed anger. Oh, I think my depressive episodes were both also from my own suppressed, or what I call disassociated anger. Oh, that panic attack that client had, that was their disassociated anger. That mania, that sounds like their disassociated anger. So psychosis, I mean, everything. And then, so that was a big part of it. It helped me understand myself and it helped my clients understand themselves. There's nothing just happens to us. We don't just catch an episode of anxiety or depression when we go to the grocery store. It's not contagious. It comes from suppressed anger. And then also seeing how it affects the physical body. So I have since done research, and there's so much research to show that a lot of autoimmune disorders are actually a result of our own dissociated anger that we're holding inside our body, and they make us sick. Migraines, gut disorders, insomnia, which I had for about 30 years. All of these, just vertigo, all of these illnesses physically are also somatic. So from dissociated anger. So that's really what made me want to be an expert on anger, because I feel like that's the kind of common denominator that is missing in both mental and physical health, is we're not talking about this.
I agree. Just in general with therapy, there's still a stigma around it. And a lot of people see that if you're going to a therapist, you must be broken. You must need something fixed inside of you, but in a negative way.
Mm.
What has it been like for you to deal with that stigma and kind of work to overcome it so that you can help more people?
Yeah, it's interesting. I just want to ask those people who are, keeping that stigma alive, like, what is so evocative to you about going to therapy? Why do you need to perpetuate the stigma? What do you think you might encounter if you were to go to a therapist? Because I would say the people behind that stigma are the ones who have the most shame, which keeps them from actually going to a therapist. The people who come to me are, or any therapist probably, are for the most part closer to health because they're actually admitting that they're human and that all humans need help and that we all have issues that we need to work on. And so that is a sign of health, that we can admit that, we can own that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I agree with you 100% because in therapy, to really, for it to work, you got to really open up and you have to be very introspective, I feel like, and reflective into what's going on with you. And I think a lot of people are afraid of that because
Yeah.
they're afraid, as you said, have shame surrounding what's going on with them. So it's easier to just keep it at bay than to actually open up that book and want to fill in the pages and figure it out. It's changing, I feel like. Do you see that as a therapist that we are becoming at least a little bit more open with our mental health and
Mhm.
actually seeking help for it?
Yeah, I actually think that's a good consequence of COVID is all of a sudden everyone, the public is talking about mental health. Like, we all have mental health now and we all admit that we need help with our mental health. So that was really a good outcome, I think, in that regard. Um, yeah, but yes, I think it is the shame. I think shame, I talk a lot about shame. Shame is a liar because shame tells us not, hey, you made a mistake, let's learn from it and do better. It says you are a mistake. You made a mistake, therefore you are a mistake, right? And shame is unlike other, it's not an emotion. So I define emotion as something that wants to move us, just like the word emotion. It wants, like anger, it wants to move us in a healthy way. But shame is unlike that. It is more of a feeling, not an emotion. And shame actually is debilitating. It wants us to get stuck. It immobilizes, it paralyzes. And unlike, natural human emotions, babies are not born into the world with shame. They are born into the world with anger and all the other emotions. But shame is not native to humans. It's parasitic and it comes from other humans. That's where we get that shame. And so the best thing we can do for our mental health, for our physical health, for our whole life is to dislodge that shame, to start to see, wait, this is not my shame. I was taught this shame. I was made to believe I am shameful, but you know what? That's bullshit. I'm not. And so I'm going to take all this shame that I feel in my body. I'm going to put it in this cardboard box right now, and I'm going to throw it into the middle of the ocean because it's not mine.
If if a person is religious,
Mhm.
then, and I don't know if you are, and it doesn't matter, but if somebody is religious, then they typically believe that shame comes from the enemy. It is a tool
Mhm.
that Satan uses
Mhm.
to um, to make us struggle and to keep us down.
Mhm.
Where do you think shame comes from? And if you are dealing with somebody who isn't religious, how do you explain to them where it comes from, other than just other people?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know that I've ever had to explain it. I think we all kind of know shame is bad. I think even someone who is in complete denial of their own shame, we all just naturally know it's bad, it's evil, so to speak, right?
Mhm.
Um, so that's a good thing. But I would say, shame makes us subhuman. And so I would agree with your what the religious ideology is. I think shame actually robs us of our humanity, which is inherently good.
You talked about a couple of the episodes that you had that really drove you to the life that you have now. Is that something that you ever experienced when you were younger, or was this just really out of the blue as an adult and kind of just really threw you for a loop?
Yeah, so I don't believe we ever experienced anything that didn't have an earlier precedent, but we're almost never conscious of that earlier precedent. So in our early childhood, I believe we all experience what I call imprinting memories. So, but again, we're not usually conscious of them. So when I became very depressed, that first episode, I'll just kind of break it down a little. We had just moved, my husband and my daughter and I. So this is 16 years ago. My daughter was just going into kindergarten. We relocated an hour and a half away, but it might as well have been the other side of the moon because I knew no one. I did not know a single person. I had no job there. My husband's going to work every day. I put my daughter in school and I'm by myself all day long. So I was very, very lonely. And just shortly after we moved, one night I looked at my husband and I think I had tears in my eyes. And I was just really hurting. I was really lonely. And my husband, instead of showing empathy on his face, actually it looked very harsh, like he was withholding empathy, which he was. And we have since discussed this. And the reason he was intentionally withholding empathy was that he felt guilty for making us move because he's the one who got the job that caused us to relocate. Mm-hmm. So he didn't want to feel that guilt. So he was withholding empathy for me. So I get that. However, in that moment, here I am 39 years old, but little 3-year-old Bronwyn is re-experiencing that same look she saw on her mother's eyes, in her mother's eyes, like every day, of like no empathy when she's crying, when she's hurting, when she's lonely. Just it's a very kind of hateful look. And that's what I wasn't aware of at the time. And that is why I started eating voraciously day and night. I think that triggered the emptiness in my gut of like just feeling unwanted and unloved. And why I was vomiting is that's shame. When we vomit, that is our shame. And so I was having these vomiting episodes out of nowhere. That was, because little children don't have objectivity. So little Bronwyn didn't have objectivity to say, you know what? Your mom's the problem, little Bronwyn. The reason she's withholding empathy is because she has a personality disorder. I couldn't do that for myself. So we just naturally conclude, I'm the reason mom doesn't look on me with empathy and show nurture towards me, right? I'm shameful. I'm defective somehow.
Is this something, once you discovered it, that you ever addressed with your mom, or did you just kind of put it in a bubble and throw it in the ocean?
I absolutely addressed it, but not with my mom as in like, talking to her. But I think we all have to address it, whether our parents are living or dead. We have to speak to them. We do. And in fact, I would say the best speaking to them is actually, even if they are alive, is not actually speaking to them, but having a voice with them in fantasy, writing them a fantasy letter, getting it all out. Because for most of us, if we were to actually do this with them in person, it would be counterproductive. Mm-hmm. It would actually backfire. And so, but in fantasy, we can really finally speak what always needed to be said. And it is very cathartic. And I find that we have to say it out loud or write it in words, but it's always through words. So, hitting a baseball bat, or like, people want to punch a bag, that actually doesn't work. You think it would, but it has to be words. It has to be precisely what needed to be said at that time.
I love that. And I've heard other people talk about that recently, and not necessarily that you shouldn't address it, with the person directly, but that you should write a letter or do something like that. I love it though, because when you bring another person into the situation, we don't know what's going to happen. You know, kind of as you said, like we can't control their reaction or their behavior. And I feel like we often go into a situation like that with pretty high expectations
Mhm.
and that are usually not met then with
Yeah.
the other person, which then leads us to the anger side of things, which we're going to roll into. How did you discover that this was a better way to address these childhood issues with your parents, you know, by writing or
Mhm.
saying the words, but not involving them per se?
Yeah. Yeah. I will say, so my mother's deceased. My father is still alive. I have said everything I need to say to him, but all through the written word. So emails, that's the only way he'll hear it. And I think we can all relate to that. So yeah, I refuse to just speak to him on the phone or in person, because that will be counterproductive, right? So how did I arrive at that? I think I just started personally really experiencing the power of, well, I will say this. Let me go here. So there is a scientific word for what we would call holding it all inside. It's called alexithymia. And what that word literally means is without words. A means without, and then lexi is like lexicon, like words. So alexithymia is what all the research is showing makes humans very sick. I mean, even causing cancer, lowering our immune response, autoimmune disorders, the migraines, the gut issues. This is all related to alexithymia. So if that is true, the solution would be having words and having the right words and speaking them out. And we have to do that and not have anyone impede that anymore, because growing up we always had that impeded, right? So we got to remove the parent if or the partner, to be able to do that.
One of the things that a lot of people struggle with is boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And then boundaries with family,
Yeah.
the whole other level, you know, and there's people out there that really believe, you know, blood is thicker than water. That's my family. I can't turn my back on them. I don't believe that. I have turned my back on some family. Best decision I ever made.
Yes.
Um, but will you talk to the people who aren't as enlightened as we are, you know, about why it is okay to set those boundaries even with family? And if you have to not communicate by phone or not communicate at all, why is that okay?
Yeah, well, I would say as a therapist, so we call the separation from our parents in particular, we call that differentiation. And a child needs to differentiate to become a healthy whole person. And so what we call a whole person, what they're doing when they differentiate from the parent is they themselves are integrating. So integrating, like an integral number, is a whole number. So we become whole as we differentiate. Those things are not two different things. They are two sides of the same coin, right? So we have to do that. And ideally, that is supposed to happen during the teen years, the preteen and teen years. Ideally, that almost never happens in real life, because what it would necessitate for it to happen is a parent or two parents who have the ego strength and the constitution to allow their kid to separate from them and differentiate and compare them with Jenny's parents and be like, I like the way Jenny's mom talks to Jenny better than the way you talk to me. And we have to be strong enough to allow that kid to say that,
Mm-hmm.
and not just enable them to be a jerk to us, but to say, you know what? I get it. I get why you like Jenny's mom better. That makes sense. That doesn't mean you're going to get to talk like that to me. So we need to have that ego strength and that nuance to be able to have those boundaries with the kid, but also allow them to differentiate. And that is so rare.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us did not have that type of parenting. But if we don't do it for ourselves, most of us do this later in life with a therapist. We finally differentiate, and that's when we become whole. When our body finally becomes healthy. That's when our mind becomes healthy. And when we're doing that, we are really coming alive. And so that entails allowing ourselves to feel angry at that parent, because differentiation can't happen without feeling angry. Does that mean our parent was a monster? No, they were human. I have a 21-year-old daughter who, will tell me, yeah, when I was 13, you did this. I'm like, yeah, I did. I really failed you. And so I have to acknowledge that, as much as that hurts. That's my job. Am I a monster? No, I'm a human. So some of us did have monster parents. We have the whole spectrum, but we have to be able to feel that anger and not live in denial in order for this to happen, in order for us to finally become whole, and to not repeat that with our kids. Because if we don't do that, it will repeat.
And we see that, with abuse and other, issues that happen, gets passed down, and it's that whole generational trauma, generational curse. I do want to say my parents are fantastic. That's not who I kicked out of my life, just to put that out there.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about anger now, because I struggle with that, and particularly around one incident that I'm still trying to heal from. Talk about how anger really affects us in the negative.
Yeah. So I would say anger. So I believe trauma is trauma because we have disassociated anger. We had things that we needed to say to that person, to that abuser or that perpetrator, wherever we're going to use that bully, that we didn't say. And so when we finally speak that out in fantasy, that really sets us free, and that trauma is no longer traumatic for us. I also believe the other thing that makes trauma is shame that happened. So shame is something, it's like a shame transfer. So when someone is like abused, sexually abused, physically abused, emotionally abused, there's a transfer of that bully. I'll just say bully. The bully's shame gets transferred onto the victim. And so we need to put that in the cardboard box in our imagination and return to owner and say, hey, perpetrator, hey, bully, I'm giving you back what was always yours. And I'm so sorry. I believed it was mine all this time, but here you go. Return to owner. This is your shame.
So it sounds easy. It sounds like something we could do in a weekend. What is the process really like, though? Let's talk about when people are healing from really serious things. What does that process look like? Because I feel like a lot of people think, it's linear, and I'm here and I'm full of trauma, and then I get here and I'm all better and trauma's all gone and everything's great. So in your opinion, what does that healing process look like?
Well, that's a great question. I have seen, I would say I have gotten much better at doing this as a therapist. Like I'm more precise now. I'm kind of like a surgeon. I'm like going in for it and taking it out. So I have seen people really improve or heal very, very quickly now. So I don't agree that it takes like months and months or years or whatever. I don't agree with that. I think it really takes a theory or modality that does it very quickly. And that's what that's why I have my podcast, is I want to get this out to the public. I don't want it just to go to the clients that I have. I want everyone to be able to be their own therapist and do what I call these integration exercises. So can I share one with you a little bit?
I would love that.
Okay. So you can share if you want to share about your trauma, or you don't have to. I can just make stuff up. It's up to you.
So I was a police officer, and I was kidnapped by the chief of police. I was unarmed at the time. taken into the woods and assaulted.
Oh my God. Okay. Wow. So, okay. So if I were helping you and, or if you're listening to my podcast or whatever, and I'm doing this integration exercise, so I would ask you like how old you were back then.
So that was in 2017.
Okay.
So 8 years, so 42.
Okay. You were 42. Okay. So I would do this. I'll just go ahead and lead you. So I'm going to have you close your eyes and I want you to picture 42-year-old Claudia. And I want you to picture everything that's happening to her because this is what we have to do to heal. We can't be in denial. We have to move towards it, although we won't have to stay there very long. So I promise you that. So I want you to picture what has happened to her, what is happening to her. And now I want you to go to her when she's struggling the most in that place. And I want you to get on her level. Maybe she's on the ground. I want you to get eye to eye with her. And I want you to look her in the eyes. And I want you to say, young Claudia, I see you. And I want you to know that I see everything that has happened. And I see all of the shame that you're feeling from all of this. And I don't blame you because everything that's happened has been very shame inducing. But I need you to know that I am here with you now and you're not alone. And I need you to see things from my perspective. I need you to see that what happened to you was not your fault. It was this other person's fault. And so we're going to take all that shame that you feel in your body right now for feeling like you failed. And we're going to put it in this big cardboard box. And we're going to give it back to this bully, this perpetrator. And we're going to say, here you go, bud. This is all yours. It all belongs to you. And you can take it and do with it what you will. But it is all yours. It does not belong to me. And then I want you to look at young Claudia and say, I'm sorry I wasn't there for you. I'm sorry. I'm realizing right now how alone you felt because I did not show up for you. I had no idea how much you needed me and how powerful I am for you. And I need you to know that you matter to me. All of your feelings matter. And I'm going to feel your feelings with you from here on out. We're going to feel them together because what's shareable is bearable. And I feel angry with you and for you. And now we are going to work to channel that anger out of our body into words in fantasy to the person or people who did this to us. And I am going to do right by you. So that's just part of one. So tell me how you feel right now in your body.
That's good. I really took myself to that place, and it's funny that you said it might be low because my strongest memory of the aftermath was like laying on my kitchen floor in tears and just spending hours crying over everything. So I see, though, how powerful talking to yourself is, but then giving that box back
Mm-hmm.
because it's not my box.
Nope.
It's that all that bullshit does not belong to me.
That's right.
So he can have it. All
That's
of them can have it.
all of them can have it.
I think that's fantastic. So I will commit. I usually give homework, or a lot of times we give homework on the podcast. I will give myself homework and say I will get to writing that letter, that fantasy letter. I admittedly have been putting it off. Why do you think that is?
Well, the shame can do it because shame makes us stuck. So maybe now that that shame is dislodged, you feel more free to feel the anger.
I love it. I love it. You should do this for a living.
I know.
Do you have, and I know, obviously we're not going to name names or give any identifying characteristics, but do you have I don't want to say favorite patient, but an individual who just seemed really, really, really lost, and
Yeah.
you were able to help them come through. What was that like for you to be able to help guide somebody to that much better place?
Yes, I do have a favorite client, and she lets me share her story. We've been working together about 2.5 years now, and I'll call her Kelly. But when she first came to me, she had been in therapy for like, I mean, on and off for like 13 years, actually, since she was a youth. And she had psychosis, and she had specifically hallucinations that were very scary. It's
Mhm.
funny how those things are never good hallucinations. Like there aren't
Right.
any, like psychosis is never like, oh, I see this clown making me laugh outside the window. No. Anyway, so she had really frightening hallucinations, and she felt like she was just sick, and she was so ashamed. There's so much shame about all that, and people just couldn't help her. And anyway, I let's fast forward to today. Well, I will say this. So her hallucinations completely ended the minute she, at my urging, but she very much took it in, ended her relationship with her mother. She cut off her mother. No more hallucinations. See how that happens. See how crazy that is. And we since determined that her hallucinations were actually her brain's way of saying, get away from your mom, because they were evil witches and they were dementors, like from Harry Potter, the soul sucking
Mhm.
dementors, which is exactly what her mom was. So her mind was like constructing these images, say, get away from her. Right. And so the minute she did, hallucinations stopped. She has gotten off all her medication. She was on bipolar meds, psychosis meds, all the meds. She's on no more meds. She is doing phenomenally. And yeah, I just love to share her story because she is just really coming to life and becoming really whole and strong and healthy. And I think she's going to go to school and become a therapist herself and help people who other people have given up on.
How long did she deal with the hallucinations?
I think like the 13 years, I
Wow.
believe. Yeah.
Do you think, and I don't want to have a huge discussion about this because I'm going to talk about healthcare for a second and insurance and medication and all that. Do you think the system
Mm.
doesn't want this
Mm.
solution
Mm.
because people are out there making piles of money on
Yeah.
all these different medications and chronic illness
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all that stuff? Do you think that factors in at all?
I've never really thought about it, but yeah, I mean, that makes complete sense. I mean, if the system were to reorient and to put all this money towards like psychotherapy and training good psychotherapists to help people, they could make lots of money that way. But if they're committed to making it, the old way, yeah, they have a lot to lose. They're a vested interest, sure.
I guess we just have to break them down then.
Gotta change it up.
Let's talk a little bit about your podcast. How
Yeah.
long have you been doing it? And what was the moment when you decided I got to do this?
Yeah. So I've been doing it a little over 2 years. I actually, I was at a church service actually, and someone I was an acquaintance with, I was talking to him and his girlfriend about one of my many soapboxes, and he just looks at me and goes, Bronwyn, you need to have a podcast. And then usually I'm the type who's like, what? Nah. And then as soon as he said it, I was like, that would be amazing, actually. Like, I'd finally have somewhere to put all this. I have so much
Mhm.
to say. And then, like, a minute later, I sat down, I checked my phone. I had an email from a charity that I was a donor to, and they actually were raising money by helping their donors with putting together podcasts, and they wanted to know if anyone needed their services. And I was like, okay, what are the odds that
Right.
this just all happened? So I was like, I'm just going to go for it.
That's a God moment right
I
there.
think so. Yeah.
A lot of people struggle, when it comes to podcasts, is they have this great idea and
Mm-hmm.
they're super jazzed about it, but there's all these reasons that they don't start
Mm-hmm.
yet.
Yeah.
I want to get through this and then I'll do it. I want to do this and then I'll do it. And that's one of the number one pieces of advice that I give people is you just got to do it.
Yeah.
Whether it's on your phone and it's crappy quality at first, whatever, but like you just have to get started. It sounds like that was not an issue for you though.
Yeah, it was actually kind of the answer because I wanted to do something. I had volunteered at a local women's prison, like teaching some therapeutic principles. So I was just kind of looking for another way to help people. And I thought this is great because it's unlimited how many people this will get to. And I can just do it from my own home. So for me, and then doing it just feels so like cathartic. I guess it's
Hmm.
like art, like how artists feel when they paint.
Right.
I've never had that, but like to me, this is that, so it feels really good.
I agree with you, and I'm sure you get the emails and the messages too about people who have listened or watched. And thank you for what you're doing.
Mm.
Have you had any really great success stories in that realm solely from your podcast?
I have some clients who listen to it and they've told me, I just remembered what you said and I saw everything differently when this happened. And it's like, oh, yes, this is why I do this.
I have a purpose.
Well, yeah, there's fruit. There's fruit from this. Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
If you could tell people one thing about anger, so
Yeah.
just one thing today to shift their
Mhm.
perception,
Yeah.
what would it be?
Yes. So I like metaphors. And I think anger, I have heard the best metaphor is it is like a light on the dashboard of your emotional car saying, check under the hood, something's off. So if we can start seeing our anger not as something to talk ourselves out of, which is what most humans do. No, you're not angry. It's fine. We're afraid of it. We think it's bad. But if we can see it as God given, it's a gift that says something is wrong, like alert, be alert. And it's there to help us reconcile what is off. It's there to bring about restoration or some kind of solution and move towards it. And, we start with just feeling it in our bodies. It usually shows up in our chest, not always, but, I just tell people like, just say, when it happens, just say, you know what? It's okay to feel angry right now. I am totally fine to feel angry. I'm just going to feel it right here in my chest. I don't have to do a single thing. I can just feel it. And I can say to myself, Bronwyn, you are entitled to be angry. I validate that. And then I can ask myself, what does this anger need right now? Does it need a boundary? Does it need assertiveness? What does it need from me? And I'll say, okay, I'm going to do right by you. And that's how we kind of reorient our relationship with ourselves.
There's a lot of different kinds of anger,
Mhm.
obviously. And we see, I feel like a lot more lately, things like road rage, where
Mhm.
people are turning violent.
Yeah.
They get angry about something and then they attack and
Yeah.
often even kill people.
Yeah.
Um, what's going on there? Is that the same kind of anger where that person just needs to say, like, it's okay to be angry. I
Mhm.
need to sit with this, but like I got to figure out what's going on deeper to cause such a reaction over somebody
Yeah.
cutting me off in traffic.
Absolutely. So, yes, I think all of that's true. I think if someone were to cut me off in traffic and I were to be like wanting to kill them, I obviously am just at the edge of, I think most people who are driving are on the edge of flowing over anyway. And so
Right.
one person cuts them off. And also, when we're in a car, we don't see other humans, we just see these machines. And so
Mhm.
we can project on to them all, the bully that I have in my life, I'm going to project on that bully who just cut me off. So all the anger at the bully in my life that I'm refusing to deal with and do right by myself with in relationship to, I'm now going to project on this bully who just cut me off. And so there's a danger there where now we want to kill this person, but who we really want to kill is that bully in our life that we're not being responsible to ourselves in relationship with, right?
So it's a danger sign or a red flag to
Yeah,
yourself.
right.
I'll tell you, one of the things that's helped me, because I expect the thank you wave when I'm driving. I get really annoyed when I don't get the thank you wave for letting somebody in. I have started initiating the thank you wave as a you're welcome wave.
I love
It
it.
really helps.
Yes.
So if I don't get the wave, I'm just like, you're welcome.
Well, see, when you're doing that, you're saying you're welcome, but you're also kind of outletting your anger a little bit at them. It's a
Yes.
little sarcastic, and I'm
Yes.
all for that. I am all for that. Absolutely. Because
Love it.
you're channeling that anger. You're not letting it stagnate inside your body. You're like, you're welcome.
Yes.
Yeah.
So anybody else, feel free to use that. It's worked. It worked for me. So
Yeah.
Bronwyn, I'm gonna shift topics here before I let you go.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk a little bit about tattoos.
Yeah.
Now, both of us are clearly amazing, respectable, professional women who both have tattoos.
Yes.
I would love to hear about your favorite tattoo, most meaningful, whatever you wanna share. But tell us a little bit about the tattooed side of you.
Yeah, I have a good story. So I can show it here, I think. I don't know if you see on the camera. So it's a tree of life. It's an oak tree, and it has Lady Wisdom in the
Oh, that's
trunk.
cool.
You see that? So I actually, my daughter and I share a birthday, and a few years ago, she was going to get this tattoo, and so I said, well, we can go together for our birthday. I'll watch you get it, and if it looks like it's not too painful, but she's the one who had it designed and everything.
Oh, nice.
So she did it. I said, that looks amazing. It didn't look too bad. I'll go under the knife now. And then it starts, and I look at her, I'm like, you did not show me how painful this was. But at the end of it, I was very glad I did it.
How long did it take?
I don't know. Too long. Too long. How about you?
I think right now my favorite is it's upside down this way, but my armor of God. So
Ooh.
it's a shield. It's obviously tattered.
Yeah.
But I put in a couple details. So I'm a big fan of the art of kintsugi. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
So I have yellow or gold highlights in it to represent, putting it back together because I feel like that's me.
Yeah.
I am broken, but I have been put back together stronger and more
Yeah.
beautiful than before. And now
Yeah.
I carry that around as a reminder. So,
Well, I think that's how we're supposed to be. I think that we're all supposed to be kintsugi in that way, and broken and put back together stronger. And yeah, and so that's again, like if we can start to have that perspective, it's not that I'm ashamed of myself for being broken. I'm supposed to be broken by life, by everything I've been through, but I am part of my own healing. That's part of what I need to do, and then I'm stronger and more beautiful for it.
yes, I just gorilla taped myself back together. You got to do what you got to do. Any other tattoos in your future?
I haven't thought about it.
I'm sensing no,
Yeah, it
but
might be a big no because the pain. And I love this one. I do.
well, I do know people in your area. So
Okay.
if you ever decide,
All right.
where can people find you? So if they want to jump on to the podcast and start listening to that, everybody, that's going to be everybody's homework. Listen to this podcast, start, subscribe, listen to it. But if people want to find your podcast, if people want to track you down for a little therapy, or if they want to try to convince you to get your next tattoo, where can they find you?
So my podcast is Angry at the Right Things, found wherever you subscribe. I have a YouTube channel too, which is my name, Brownwyn Schweigerdt. And then I'm on the social media. Yeah, that's it. I only take clients in the state of California, so that's a limitation. But yeah, I want everyone to listen to these integration exercises. So I want people to be their own therapists. I want therapists to learn them so they can do them to their clients, because it works. It's really transformational.
Your heart is so obvious, because a lot of people would say, oh no, I'm going to make this a course and I'm going to charge for it, or, whatever. And just the fact that it was so important to you to be able to give this gift really to anybody that has the ability to listen, I think is so absolutely amazing of you.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. I'm definitely a new subscriber. Bronwyn, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you taking a few minutes to break down anger and shame, let people know that it's not their fault. And now we all got to get our cardboard boxes ready to toss in the ocean. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you for listening to the Strong Enough podcast. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform by searching Strong Enough. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Strong Enough Pod. If you have suggestions for an upcoming episode or a future guest, please reach out at strongenoughpod@gmail.com. Remember, you are worth it.